Thank you for coming today for our preview of high-impact presentations. And we will be taking you through how the program works and you get a chance to practice. So this won't be just sitting there thinking about it, you actually get a chance to do it so we can demonstrate how this works. So today we're going to look at some aspects of high impact. This is not just a presentations course. We have presentation courses which are a little bit more short in nature. It's just a one day. They tend to be more basic for people who are beginning. This is high impact for people who want to have real capacity to be persuasive. That might be a one-on-one capacity. It might be like this, one to a small group. It could be one to a very large group. What you learn in this particular course, how to deal with every single level of complexity. That's very, very important. So, we have the objectives. Okay. Up. So, how overall the 2 days, the 2-day program, we take 12 people, so it's very intense. There's so much coaching. There's so much coaching involved that 12 people is a good number. So, of course, how to plan and structure your presentation. And we do many varieties of presentations. So you learn the full scope of what you need to know. And how to begin a presentation with a very positive impression and how to keep that. So your first impression and your last impression are really important. Right? You know yourself, your first impression of something tends to be very strong, and it's very hard to unwind that. So with presenting, you've got to get that right. And also the last thing you say tends to be what people remember, and their final impression is what they tend to remember. So you've got to get that right too. So we work on that. And how to be natural and relaxed. Carnegie, we don't teach acting. This is not Shakespeare. You don't have to be somebody else. Oh, I have to be, like Steve Jobs, or I have to be like, Barack Obama, or whoever it might be. No. The critical thing is you are you. You be yourself. You be yourself. Be your natural self, but be skilled as your natural self. So what you already are, perfect. You don't need to be anybody else. You have your own style, but be skilled in your own style. Okay? And clarity around the ideas. Sometimes, particularly in complex cases where there's a lot of information, the audience can't follow. Your explanation might be too long and can't quite get to the point. We teach how to get to the point, clear, and also with force, so that people follow what you say. If you don't have that energy and passion when you say it, people don't tend to go with it. It's like, for example, I'll give you an example. If I started my presentation today like this, how would this be? It's great to be here today. I'm the president of Carnegie Training Japan. We're a fantastic training organization. So no force. But listen to what I said. Hi, it's great to be here today. I'm the president of Carnegie Training Japan, and we're a fantastic training organization. The words are great, but there's no force. So you don't buy the message. You don't buy the message at all. So we've got to learn how to communicate with clarity and some force so people buy that message, and how to sell ideas and inspire other people. So this is very interesting. They did a survey in America of vice presidents of 200 vice presidents of very large American companies. What do you think about the presentations that you listen to in business? Only 3% thought they were stimulating. 40% said it makes me feel sleepy. Now, who here in Japan has ever been to a Japanese presentation that you felt sleepy? Go on, everyone put up your hands. Of course you have, right? That's always the case, especially in the afternoon. It's a killer in Japan. Right? And then 44% said they're boring. So if you think about it, 97% of people aren't doing a particularly good job. So by learning some fundamental skills and practicing, you can be in this elite group very, very simply. But you've got to put in the work. But it says to you, hey, not many people are very good at this. I could stand out just by improving my skills. I could be much better than 97% of the population. You think about your own business that you're in now, how hard is it to be better than 97% of the other businesses that you're competing with now? That's pretty tough to be 97% better. But you personally, you could definitely be 97% better than everybody else through this course. Now, I gave you a little example before where what I said and the way I said it didn't work. Right? We call it incongruent in English. It didn't line up. What I said, the words and the way of saying it did not match. Right? When that happens, a study by Albert Rabian at UCLA found that people don't listen to what you say. People don't listen to the words. Only 7% of the actual words get heard. They're making up their feeling about your presentation by looking at how you're dressed, how you look, and the other 38% is by your voice tone and style of speech. But when you make a presentation, all of you, when you prepare a presentation, I'm sure you put a lot of effort into the content. Would that be right? People worry, do you worry about the content? Yeah, of course you do. You want to make sure the content's right. So what do? You probably spend a lot of time on PowerPoint or a lot of time in preparation, get the content right. Most people spend 99% of their time on PowerPoint and 1% on preparation of delivering the PowerPoint. That's the problem. PowerPoint is not the presentation. You are the presentation. And you need to practice. So when things don't work here, we go for what we see. So when I did that little demonstration before, and I said, well, it's great to be here. I'm Story, President of Train Japan. We're a fantastic training company. If I put those words on the board, you'd say, okay, right, I get the message, 100%. But you didn't get that message at all. You got no power, no eye contact, voice is weak, looking down. You got all of those messages, so it killed the message down. Here's the point. Even if you do fantastic preparation and you get the best PowerPoint in the world, you get up there and you don't deliver it in the right way, with enthusiasm and energy, then people won't go for the message. They'll go for you, and I'll conclude, not very good, because you're not energized, you're not interesting, they just look at you and think, oh, that was boring. That's why you're in that 97% are not working. Okay. So this is something we need to look at. So this is the question. What is the message? What is the message? What do you think is the message?
The body languages.
Body language, yeah. What else do you think? What is the message? That's definitely one of the others. What do you think? What is the message? It's not a trick question, but I'll help you out with the answer. You are the message. Now this is very important because the PowerPoint is not the message. The handouts are not the message. Actually, you are the message. Now we have to understand that. You are the message. Right? So what you do becomes absolutely critical to making this work. And we're going to practice a little bit of a presentation in a minute, but this is a structure, for example. Just one of the, as an example of one of the structures we teach. We have many different structures. I'll talk about those in a minute, but this gives you an example of one where we're looking for persuasion power. You need to design how you're going to open the speech. Now, opening a speech, be it in Japanese or in English, does not really involve saying, well, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm really pleased to be here. My name is Dr. Greg Story. I'm the president of Carnegie Training Japan. That is not an opening. That is definitely not an opening. Yes, it's one type of opening, but a very weak opening. And everybody does it. So it doesn't stand out. No power. No power at all. So what you want is something that's got cleverly designed, lots of power, and then you're giving points, key points you want to make, but those key points have to be backed up with evidence. So that people will believe the point. So point evidence, point evidence, point evidence. Then go into your close, again, final impression is very important. Now the close, we break it up in this particular case into an action benefit statement. So therefore everyone, I recommend that you take the high impact presentation course, and if you do, you will become a much more persuasive speaker. See, action benefit, that type of thing. Particularly in business, this is very powerful because you're able to get people to come on board. Now, if you do it the other way, and this comes up sometimes, the Japanese audiences say, well, I heard that, for Western culture, you have to get straight down to business and get the action benefit up the front first, tell people what the conclusion is. Yes, in some cases, that is true. But if you want to be successful as a communicator, that's not the way to go. Because as soon as you get into this, you start getting pushback because there's no context. There's no background. You're giving the answer, we should do this. Immediately people are thinking all the reasons why that's wrong, why they should reject your idea. So if you're clever, you go into an opening, you provide some context, go into the close, which is action benefit. Right? So what we recommend is what we call the magic formula. It works like this. So 90% of the time is providing the context, and then 5% of the action benefit at the end. The beauty of this magic formula system is that you cannot argue with my context because it's my context. You can argue with my conclusion about the context, but you can't argue with the context. So you're going to hear the context, the background of why I'm recommending something first without being able to challenge it. You can't challenge that. When I get to this part, you can challenge that recommendation. You can challenge this part. But if we do it around the other way, people tend to reject what you're saying because they don't accept your recommendation. And then when you try and get to explain the context, their minds are already closed off. You see how this works? This is just one example of how we teach people how to be more effective in communication by switching the roles. I'll give you an example. Say we're at a company meeting, say we're thinking about marketing budget, what we're going to spend on marketing, and we've got some issues around how much money we've got to spend. An example I'll give a very brief one might be, I was talking to Mark, who's based in New York, and he was telling me that their experience was when they allocated this amount of money in their marketing budget to buying AdWords with Google and Yahoo and prominent AdWords sites, they found that there was a tremendous take-up in leads being generated by that. But they also found that the wording had to be very carefully decided on which particular AdWords you selected. But the upshot was that by investing a certain amount of money, the return they got was 3, 4 to 5 times the normal reaction that they got previously. So therefore, my recommendation is that we should also allocate similar monies for AdWords, and if we do, we're also likely to get 4 and 5 times the lead generation. You see. So when I talk about Mark, and I talk about his experience in New York and what happened, you can't argue with that. You can't say, oh, that didn't happen. Or Mark wasn't there. Mark didn't say that. You can't argue with that. When I get down to here, I say, well, let's do what they did. Maybe you can argue with that, but you've already heard me out. And then I give my recommendation. So as an example of the magic formula of how to convince people, this is one of the examples that we use. Now, as I said, this is a 2-day intensive program. It's coming up in August. It's on the Tuesday and the Wednesday. It'll go from 9 to 6. And day one we cover creating that first impression. We're going to practice that. today, all of us. We're going to practice creating a positive first impression a little bit. Okay? And the second session we look at is how to be more credible when you present. Because, like I was before, this has no credibility. No body language, no power, voice is weak, looking down. Lacks credibility. You're not going to follow my recommendation. So how to speak with credibility when you do so. I'll go through this in more detail in a bit. And how to present complex information. This is very important. Sometimes it's not a simple subject. We actually have to give very detailed, difficult information. But how to do that in a way that people can easily absorb it, that's not so simple, but we teach that. So, for example, first impressions. So we try and work on that first positive impression, get that right. And you've got to think about yourself as a presenter. What is your benchmark? What is your standard for that? What are your objectives for the training? So we've got 2 days of training. At the beginning, you set some objectives for yourself. How to build up a rapport with your audience. And then also create a vision for yourself. So you've got a pathway. So the training you set up, okay, what's the standard I want? What is the particular objective I want out of this? And then what's my vision for where I will be in 6 months to 12 months' time? So you can work towards that vision. So we do all that in the first session. Then the second session is on increasing credibility. So the second session, how to communicate with increased credibility, as I said before. How to present a positive image of our organisation. How to project enthusiasm. Enthusiasm, it's catching, it's contagious. If you've got energy and enthusiasm, people are more likely to follow you and believe you. And competency with confidence in your communication. And then how to bring in evidence. You make a statement, I might doubt it. But if you make a statement with evidence, I'm more likely to follow you and believe you. So we need to work out how to do that in a way that's very effective. And then presenting complex information. So you need some flexibility in making complex material simple. So you've got to think differently. Particularly experts are very aware of the content. They're used to talking to other experts, but when they talk to non-experts, sometimes we can't follow them. So we've got to understand how to make it understandable to others, even though it's very complex. We've got techniques for doing that. And then make it interesting. Make it interesting. It doesn't have to be boring. You've got to find ways to make even complicated information exciting. And then find the level of your audience and pitch your presentation at that right level. Logical progression through the presentation. And then try and develop some emotional contact. You would think in a very formal, dry presentation, that wouldn't be important. It's important because we are emotional creatures. We justify with logic, but we're emotional. So you're trying to develop emotional contact with the audience so they will believe you and they will follow you. Right? You do that with a whole series of mechanisms we have for that. So day 2, we work on how to have greater impact when you communicate. This was a real stretch session. It'll take you right out of your comfort zone to have a bigger range of possibilities when you present. You'll come out of this session really confident, really confident. Your realm of possibilities will become much larger when you do this session. Very exciting session, that one. My favourite session. And then how to motivate others to action. If you're a leader, or if you're in sales, or if you want to get cooperation from your team members or your subordinates, then you've got to get them motivated to come with you. How do you do that? You can't just yell at them, be motivated. That doesn't work. You've got to find out how to get their motivation, how to get them excited to adopt your policy, to adopt your idea, to cooperate with you, to buy your product, whatever it might be. We're talking about presentation skills here. As I said, it could be one-to-one, it could be one to a small group, or it could be one to many. All of these things are important. And then, when you have a pressure situation, okay, particularly you get into things like question and answer. When you're presenting, you're in control. You're good. As soon as you get to Q&A, you're no longer in control. Right? The questioners are in control, unless you know what you're doing. We teach you how to know what to do. So you never ever get into a situation where you feel I'm out of control here, or I'm embarrassed, or I feel under a lot of attack and stress and pressure. We fix that for you. Now this might even be as simple, it doesn't have to be a big audience. This can be in a typical meeting. I've been in companies where there's a lot of rivalry between different divisions. Sales and marketing, IT and everybody, basically, you know. You get these different groups. And sometimes you get in the meeting and people are using questions as knives. You know, it's not really for the information. They're trying to embarrass the person. They're trying to make a political point. They're trying to score points, we say in English, right? That's the reality of some people's use of particularly Q&A. Or it could be inside the company, it could be a group, it could be a wider audience. How we respond to that shows a lot about our professionalism. And this is the most high pressure. And we put you through some really high pressure stuff here. So you come out much stronger. When you come out of that, you say, no problem. You know, it's like an athlete will overtrain for the event. They'll run for, they only run 26 miles for a marathon or 42 something kilometres for a marathon. No, they run hundreds of kilometres for a marathon, right? They overtrain. The same thing here. We overtrain so that when you get into a situation and someone attacks you through a question, you don't fall apart or look embarrassed or trying to escape. You look very professional, very calm, very confident, and you answer the question beautifully. And everyone goes, wow, I'm glad that guy didn't ask me that question. They look at you and say, geez, I wish I could do that. That's what we do there. And then how to inspire people to embrace change. If you're leading an organization, no matter how small the group, and you want an improved outcome. Now, I don't know, in your company, are they happy with last year's results, or do they want a higher result this year?
Of course, higher results.
Right? So a better result or a higher result is two things. Either you do something new, or you do something you've done before, but you do it in a slightly different way. Otherwise, same thing, same way, we get the same result. So better or improved or higher means new or slightly different. Either of those things is a change. But people are resistant to change. They're in their comfort zone. They're comfortable. They don't want to step out of that comfort zone. They don't want to embrace change. But you need to get the better results. So you've got to get people to come with you to embrace change. How do you do that? This is how you do that. We'll talk about that as well. So, in the section on communicating with greater impact, right? So in that particular section, we're going to increase our flexibility by use of expression, gestures, voice modulation, speed. Now for Japanese people, that's a bit tricky because your speaking in Japanese style is a very flat language. Japanese is very flat. When I first came to Japan, I went to Jochi University and I started learning Japanese, and the sensei said, no, not up and down, flat, because as a foreigner, I'd be saying, watashi wa ikimasu, up and down, right? He said, no, flat. So when you're speaking Japanese, because it's a rather monotone, flat language, we've got to teach you how to inject speed and take speed out. We teach you how to inject power and take power out. To have the variation. In many other tonal languages like English, we can add the tones up and down. But you can still get a lot of variety in Japanese, but you've got to practice that. And then sometimes you have to get up and deliver material that's not created by you. Suddenly someone says, oh, look, you've got to present this. Oh my God, I have. And how do you own that material? So we teach you those sort of situations too. And sometimes you have to read the material. Not every, we of course always say, well, you can never read anything, but sometimes you have to read things. You might be representing your boss. It might be a particular document that for legal reasons, it has to be exactly as it's written. How to do that in a way that's interesting. So we teach that. And also, things that might stop you from being flexible. We deal with those. So that's that section. The section on motivating others to action. This section here, so we look for motivating others to action. How do we get results? How do we persuade an audience to take action? How do we provide evidence that's credible? How to be motivational and brief, clear, and be convincing when we speak. So that's what we're going to cover in that part of the session. So we're talking about inspiring people to embrace change. The content for that one will be both logic and emotion. We buy on emotion and we justify with logic. That's how the world works. We buy on emotion, we justify with logic. It's the same. You buy the message emotionally and you justify it with logic. Same thing. So we're going to teach you how to have both working for you. Not just you get plenty of structure and plenty of presentation, detailed evidence. That's all great. But if you don't have a way of appealing to the audience, it doesn't work. And then that structure makes it easy for the audience to follow. Be convincing. Again, how to provide that strong evidence. And also offer solutions but show your objectivity. So you might offer them 3 ways of doing something and recommend one of them. But then people feel, oh, okay, I'm given a choice of things as opposed to a directive. So that's very good. And responding to pressure situations. So, as I said before, this is difficult. This is difficult. How to keep calm when your audience is rather hostile. Someone's attacking you. How do you keep calm? We teach them how to have very positive, clear messages. Strategic ideas, how to sell those. Big picture ideas. And again, we're going to be confident, and how to handle those stressful situations with good communication. So this one is, for impact, we want 3 things. Good structure, content that's got good evidence in it, interesting, but also delivery. If you've only got a logical structure but the evidence is weak, it doesn't have impact. If you have really good content but the structure's all over the place, I can't logically follow. Where are we going with this? I get lost. It doesn't work. If you've got really good structure and its content's really great, but your personal delivery isn't good, well, that's not going to have impact either. See, so you need all 3. And these require practice. So often people will get, maybe the structure's okay, content might be okay, but this often is the weak point right here, the delivery part. It doesn't match. And again, everyone spends all their time on PowerPoint and no time on practice. They wonder why they have a problem. And as I said before, this part here is the presentation. Your face is the presentation. Right? That is the presentation, not the PowerPoint. PowerPoint should be secondary to what we're doing. We have to be the one. Right? So, what are some things that are defining our influence? How we look. How we look is very important. How you stand, how you dressed. That's one thing. Then how we communicate with people. They judge us by how we look, and we do this, don't we? When we meet someone, we can see their clothing. We can't see inside their heart. You know, we can see their clothing. We can't see inside their mind. So we make a judgment about how their face looks. or how they're dressed, or the colour combination or something. We make all these judgments. Then communication style is another one. Our attitude and self-control. So how do you come across? Do you come across as a confident professional or someone who's a bit shy and not really sure of themselves and worried how you look? And your attitude and self-control, this is under pressure, you look professional all the time. And then how we relate to people. This is again first impression, how we're dealing with an audience. And then finally, this is the combination of your professional competence. If you want to be seen as a professional, these are the sorts of things that we need to be looking at. Okay, so we're going to do some coaching in a minute, but I'll talk a little about that. Now, if you imagine a golf coach, okay, the golf coach is teaching someone how to swing, do their swing in golf. After the person's taken the swing, they don't say, oh, you should have done this, should have done that, forgot about that, next time do this. It's too late. What does the golf coach do? While you're taking the swing, the golf coach is saying, left shoulder down. Okay, drive on the back leg, drive on the back leg. They're peppering you with corrections. So you can make the adjustment while you're doing the swing. That's how we coach. So when you're up here presenting, and you will be up here presenting in a minute, by the way, we're not saying to you after you've done it, oh, you should have done this and you should have done that. While you're doing it, we'll give you some correction. So you can fix it out while you're up there. So you get instant change. As I said before, getting people to change is not so easy. People don't want to change. They like their comfort zone. So we help them. It's very active, the coaching, intervention, it's helping it stretch you. It'll challenge you, of course. And we ask you to be accountable for your own progress too. We hold you accountable for what you're doing. And we'll also model the outcomes for you. So first impressions, let's think about that. And again, this is coming back to the objectives we had before. I dealt with those first impressions. This is what I'm going to work on now. Okay, you're going to work on this, how to establish your first impression and think about how you want to come across to people. We'll work mainly on this part just now. We'll just take one little section of the training and try it. All right, okay. So let's get the structure. I think you could all manage this. Tell us your name. It's easy enough, right? Tell us where you work and what you do, what the position is in the organisation. What type of presentations do you give most often? What are they like? And then why are these important for you in terms of giving presentations for your organisation, also for you personally? So it's not a very complicated menu, is it? Think you can all manage that? Can you plan that? You all know the answers to these things already, right? Everyone's already got this information. You know what your job is, you know what your position is, you know what types of presentations you give, and you know why that presentation is important to your organisation. Right? So I'm going to let you take a few minutes now and just think about planning that content, about how you're going to address that, and then we're going to do a little bit of partner work, and then we're going to get up and actually do it, and we're going to film it.